Shalom everybody and welcome to our shiur today called Lechem Hapanim and the Power of a Smile. My name is Les Seidel and I'm from Lechem Hapanim in Israel, the Showbread Institute. What we do is we research the Lechem Hapanim of the Beit HaMikdash and we trying to bake the Lechem Hapanim and try to get the same results as they had 2,000 years ago, Beit Garmu in the time of Beit Sheni. As part of our research, we've discovered many incredible things. And one of those things is what I'm going to be sharing with you today. It's called Lechem Hapanim and the Power of a Smile. The Lechem Hapanim, the korban of the Lechem Hapanim, consisted of three elements. First of all, you had the shulchan. The shulchan was a special display table for displaying the Lechem Hapanim. Then you had the actual Lechem Hapanim, the 12 loaves of Lechem Hapanim. They were placed on the shulchan in 2 piles of 6 breads alongside each other. According to the Mefarshim, each loaf represented one of the Shnei Masar Shiftei Yisrael. That was the second element, was the lechem. The third component of the korban was the levona. Levona was a spice, an incense, which was placed in 2 bazichim, 2 bowls of golden bowls of levona. There's a machloket whether the bowls, the bazichim, were placed on top of the stack of the breads or they were placed in the center of the table between the 2 stacks. But that was the third component. You had the shulchan, you had the lechem hapanim, and you had the levona. Those were the 3 components of the korban lechem hapanim. The shulchan was located on the northern side of the hechal. There's a quote in the Gemara which says, "Sheya ashir yatzpin." Somebody who wants to become materially rich or wealthy will go to the northern side of the hechal. That was where the shulchan was located, because the Lechem Hapanim and the Shulchan are symbolic of a material bracha, the bracha of parnasa and material wealth. We have been studying many different aspects of the Lechem Hapanim, and one of those aspects that we've been studying is the shape of the Lechem Hapanim. There's a very famous machloket in the Gemara in Masechet Menachot Daf Tzadi Daled Amud Bet, what the shape of the Lechem Hapanim was. According to Rabbi Chanina, the shape was a teva parutza, a box with a lid taken off the box. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it was a ship, a kind of a dancing ship, a sfina rokedet. Rashi, in his Perush on the Gemara, attaches pictures to show you what they look like. Here we have a photocopy from the Vilna Shas edition of the Gemara, and here we can see the picture of the teva parutza. Looks like a rectangular box without a lid. The shape of the sfina rokedet we see here is the shape of an English letter V, like a V shape. If anybody is just looking at this page in the Gemara, incidentally, most of the modern Gemarot are based on the Vilna Shas, the Schottenstein, the Steinsaltz, the Art Scrolls. They're all based on this Vilna Shas, and they all have the same drawings. And if you look at this page of the Vilna Shas and the drawings, even if you go into the Sugya, it doesn't seem to be mind-blowing in any way. It doesn't seem to hold some fundamental life lesson. But actually, this whole issue of the shape of the Lechem Hapanim has a mind-blowing repercussions. And the only way you discover that is by digging a little bit deeper, which we have done. And that is what I want to show you today. So we wanted to research the shape of the Sfina Rokedet a little bit deeper because we wanted to find out what kind of ship they were talking about. It's a Sfina Rokedet, it's a kind of a dancing ship. What did the ship look like? So we contacted a number of professors of maritime archaeology from different universities around the world, and we asked them to send us pictures of different ships from the period of this Gemara, and they sent us back a whole bunch of pictures, and I put them together in a table. And what is interesting about this is that there's not a single ship that has the shape of a V. They all have a curved U shape at the bottom or a flat bottom like that, but none of them have a V shape. So how did Rashi then put a shape of a V? Why did Rashi draw the shape of a V? And one of the theories that we had is that Rashi may have not have drawn that shape originally in his original Perush. Maybe the picture that you're seeing in the Vilna Shas, which was from 1860, which is approximately 160 years ago, maybe that is not an accurate depiction of Rashi's original drawing. So we went back in time to try and find the oldest existing manuscript of Rashi's Perush on this Gemara, on this Masechet of Menachot. And we found the oldest one in existence is from the 13th century. It is in the Vatican archives in Rome. We managed to get access to this document, and when we examined it, we found, unfortunately, that the manuscript only went up to Daf Tzadi Gimel, which is 1 page short of this machloket, so it does not have these drawings that we were looking for. We had to jump forward to the next one in the timeline, which was from a collection called the Firkovich Collection, which is displayed in the National Library of Russia in St. Petersburg. And here we can see that the shape of the Teva Prutza is identical to the Vilna Shas, but the shape of the Sfina Rokedet is a little different to the shape of a regular letter V. Has a more convex rear end, a more concave front end. In fact, it looks a little bit more like a ship or a little bit more like a boat. In Rashi's Perush, in his verbal Perush, his written Perush, he uses the term Kuf Vav Vav Yud Shin, which is an abbreviation of an ancient word in ancient French called coyer. Coyer is a kind of a ship. The University of Provence in France sent us a picture of what a coyer looks like, and this is what it looks like. It has a curved U bottom. So it is most likely that the shape of the Sfina Rokedet had a U shape and not a V shape. To get a little bit more concrete evidence for this, we had to find another source, and we did find the source. The source is a coin that they found in the last 50 years. It's called the Matbea Pruta of Matitya Antigonus Hasheni. Matitya Antigonus was the king directly before Herod. Herod was the choice of the Romans for the Malchut, and he was not the closest guy to Yiddishkeit. He was an Edomi, and he was not the closest to Yahadut, whereas Matitya Antigonus was the last of the Hasmonean kings. He was the last of the dynasty of the Hasmonean, and he went on a propaganda campaign against Herod to try and prevent him from becoming king. And the way he did this was by minting coins with symbols of the Beit HaMikdash, trying to bring Am Yisrael back to their shorashim, back to their roots. And on one side of the coin, he put a picture of the menorah, and on the flip side, a picture of the shulchan with the Lechem Hapanim. Here we can see the tabletop with the 4 legs going down, and the Lechem Hapanim displayed on top of it. Here is another picture from a different coin. There are about 70 of these coins in existence today. And here we can see the tabletop over here more clearly with the legs going down and the Lechem Hapanim stacked above it. And it's quite clear from this coin that the shape of the Lechem Hapanim was a curved U shape, which was actually probably the correct shape of the Sfina Rokedet. In fact, Rashi in his Perush in the Gemara further on, he says Ma'agel. He says that it is curved at the bottom, which seems more to corroborate with this picture of a curved U shape at the bottom, which indicates perhaps that the Vilna Shas may not be 100% accurate, even though that it was based on a Gemara from a few hundred years before. The shape of the Sfina Rokedet was in all likelihood a curved U shape. So the question is now, what is the difference whether the boat is U-shaped or it's rectangular shaped or it's V-shaped? Who cares? What is the difference? And what is the real significance of it? Either way, we have a lot of literature which shows you the picture of the square shape of the Teva Prutza, because the Rambam in Hilchot Midin Musafim writes there that the shape of the Lechem Hapanim was meruba'at, and it seems that he's posek halacha that it was the rectangular shape, and therefore most of the literature that you see today, is based on the Rambam's psak halacha, which is a Teva Prutza, and very few people pay any attention to the other shape of the Sfina Rokedet. So we've been researching the shape and trying to figure out exactly what it looked like and draw it accurately using engineering diagrams. And this is probably what it would have looked like. It had a curved round bottom end with 2 ends rising up sharply. Rashi says, Rashem Chadim, they were sharp ends, and this is how they rested on top of each other on the shulchan. As we said before, the Lechem Hapanim had 3 components. You have the shulchan, you have the Lechem Hapanim, and you have the levona. And again, the question is, what is the difference, what the shape is? So the answer to that is that there is a very important difference, because if you take these components using the shape of the Sfina Rokedet, for example, and you put them together on the shulchan in the correct configuration that they were displayed, you get this. This is a depiction of a smiley face. Perhaps the first pictorial depiction of a smiley face in history. Scientists, for example, this was from 1300 BCE. That was when the Mishkan was built. That was the first pictorial depiction of a smile. The scientists in the modern literature say that the first depiction of a smile in pictorial form was from 1280 BCE from a pot that they found on the Turkish-Syrian border. It's called the Hittite pot, the Hittite pot, and it has a picture of a smiley face on it. But the Lechem Hapanim in that configuration predates the Hittite pot by about 30 years. So the Lechem Hapanim, when people saw the shape of the Lechem Hapanim, it stimulated the image of a smiling face. Now, smiles have something that is natural. People smile periodically, and the reason they smile is because they think something's funny or they feel happy inside, but it's just something that happens naturally. Nobody had ever thought to study the science of smiles until the 1800s. In the 1800s, there were a number of scientists, for example, Charles Darwin, very famous for his controversial theory of evolution, and another famous French neurologist called Duchenne. Duchenne studied the effects of stimulating the facial muscles using electronic impulses and seeing the reaction of the muscles and how they change the facial expression. Duchenne experimented with different points on the different muscles, and he came to the conclusion that the smiling expression on the face is caused by two main muscles. The first muscle is called the Zygomaticus Major, which connects from the cheekbone to the lower jaw. And basically what that muscle does is it pulls the corners of the mouth up into the shape of a smile. But that is not the end of a smile. The smile also involves the eyes. There are two muscles around each eye called the orbicularis oculi. And when a person smiles in a sincere, real smile, not only do the zygomatic muscles contract and make the mouth go up, they also constrict the eyes a little bit into a little bit of a squinted kind of eye pattern. And you see little wrinkles on the sides of the eyes called crow's feet in the literature. And these two components are indicative of a true smile. In fact, if somebody wants to stimulate the zygomaticus muscles by will, you can do it willingly. Everybody does that when they take photos. If you say, okay, everybody smile, say cheese, everybody goes, and they activate the zygomaticus muscles. But if you ever try activate your orbicularis oculi muscles by the power of will, it is almost impossible to do that. And the only way these muscles are actually activated is when somebody gives a true smile because of an inner feeling of happiness. This is the science of a smile. Babies in vitro already start smiling. The baby in the womb is already smiling before the baby is born. And if you're Jewish and you know a little bit about Yahadut and the Mefarshim, this is not very surprising because the baby in the mother's womb is being taught the Torah by angels 24/7. He's studying Torah. He's receiving food from heaven, as it were. It's coming down the umbilical cord. It's a very similar situation to what we had in Gan Eden. When Adam HaRishon and Chava were in Gan Eden, they were sitting the whole day studying Torah, and they were receiving food from Shamayim. They didn't have to do anything to prepare their food, very much like a baby. So why wouldn't a baby smile? It's exactly like being in Gan Eden. When babies are born, they continue to smile. In fact, the first smile of a baby is like a landmark. It's like a milestone in the baby's life. Oh, the baby smiled for the first time. Actually, scientists are a little bit more cynical of why babies smile. They say it's because of a survival instinct, that in order to attract the caregiver, the baby wants somebody to take care of the baby. So in order to create this bond between the baby and the caregiver, the mother or the parent, the baby smiles, and this endears the baby to the caregiver and ensures that they will be given the correct tender, loving care. So the scientists are a little bit more cynical about the reason behind a smile, but I prefer to think that babies also smile because they are intrinsically happy with themselves. Children are the people who smile most. According to scientific studies, children smile between 200 to 300 times a day as part of their interactions with other children, as part of their play, as part of their day-to-day activities, 300 times a day. As we get older, though, we begin to smile less and less. If you go to a supermarket, you look around, for example, you'll see the main people smiling are usually the kids smiling, and the adults, as they get older, begin to smile less and less. And the reason we do this is because of social stereotyping. It is not always culturally acceptable to smile as much as children. When you're an adult, for example, especially if you're a man, it is not macho and not manly to smile. Smiling is often perceived as something feminine, and that's why men are encouraged not to smile. It's a social stereotype that we learn as we grow older. It's not something physiological or natural in our makeup. It's something that we are taught. In fact, we learn to control and manipulate smiles in different ways. You can create different smiles. For example, this is a perfect example of a fake smile. You see this often on airline flights where you see, look at a flight attendant who has to turn on the smile like a machine on and off. The fake smile involves simply the cheese photograph of activating the Zygomaticus Major muscles without the constriction of the eyes. That is a dead giveaway for a fake smile. But as we grow older, we learn to use smiles, different types of smiles, in all different kind of situations, for example. So as adults, we learn to manipulate our smiles and use them for what we want to convey. But these are smiles that are manipulated by our conscious will and are not activated by some inner feeling. There is, however, one smile that is a response to some feeling that we feel inside. And this was called by Duchenne, the famous neurologist. He called it a Duchenne smile. And this is what is considered a correct and genuine smile. It involves not only the zygomaticus muscle on the side of the face, also involves a constriction of the eyes. And you see the little wrinkles on the side of the eyes. That's called crow's feet in the literature. This is a classic Duchenne smile, and it is almost impossible to create by just simple power of will. It is as a response to some inner emotion. In fact, that's how Duchenne expressed it. He said it reflects the sweet emotions of the soul. This is a true, authentic, sincere smile. Beyond the actual mechanics of the smile, there's something chemical going on in the background as well. There are certain hormones that make a person feel good. These are called the feel-good hormones, because when you have these hormones running around your system, they make you feel really uplifted and really good. The first one of these is called endorphins. Endorphins, if you're a sportsman and you're a runner, for example, you're probably very familiar with endorphins. They are a kind of the body's own morphine. It's a kind of a painkiller that when you do hard physical exercise, it dulls the pain. But in addition to dulling the pain, it also makes you feel really uplifted and feel good. That is the first one, called endorphins. The second transmitter in the brain, the second hormone, is called dopamine. Dopamine is a kind of a upper. When you talk about drug addicts who take drugs, there's uppers and downers. So dopamine is the body's natural upper. If you have dopamine coursing through your veins, it is going to make you feel ecstatic, elated. It's a really, really happy, good feeling if you have dopamine. Oxytocin is very common with mothers who are feeding their babies. When the mother cuddles the baby, it is a stimulus to release the milk that the mother feeds to the baby. It's what is necessary, a hormone necessary to release the milk, and it is stimulated by cuddling. And therefore, oxytocin has been named, it's been called the cuddle or the hugging hormone, because when somebody cuddles somebody or they hug somebody, they excrete this hormone, and it gives the person a good warm feeling inside by cuddling and hugging, makes you feel good. And it's not only physical cuddling and hugging, it is also when people are in social situations, social interactions, meeting with friends or relatives and having a breakfast together or a social meeting together. This also stimulates the excretion of oxytocin, makes somebody feel good. The fourth hormone is called serotonin. Serotonin acts between the synapses of the nerve. It excites the reaction, the electrical reaction between the synapses, and it lifts a person's emotions. It makes them feel more upbeat and more happy. Serotonin is very often used as an antidepressant. People who are depressed, the medication that they give them is a medication containing serotonin because it lifts up a person's mood. These are called the feel-good hormones. People who have these hormones rushing through their system are going to feel really, really happy and really, really good. And the incredible thing about this is that when a person smiles, the mechanical action of the muscles of the smiling actually stimulate the excretion of all four of these hormones: dopamine, oxytocin, endorphin, and serotonin. So when a person smiles, he has an uplifted, happy feeling. The smile is stimulated by a happy feeling inside, which causes the person to smile. The person then smiles, and he creates these hormones, which makes him even more happy. So it's a kind of self-reinforcing loop, feeling happy inside, making these hormones come into your system and making you feel even more happy, making you smile even more. It's a self-reinforcing loop. This is the anatomy and the physiology of smiling. When a person smiles in response to a happy emotion, he smiles. It's a response. The question is, can we do the reverse? Can we, if we do not have a happy emotion inside, by the actual physical act of smiling, can we create a happy emotion within ourselves? That is a question that scientists and psychologists have been trying to discover. So in order to understand this, we need to talk about a concept in modern research, in modern neuroscience. It's called embodied cognition. Embodied cognition, in a nutshell, the classic model of how the brain relates to the rest of the body is as follows. The brain, according to the classic model, is the center of the body. That is from where everything originates. The brain first has a thought or an emotion, and then it sends a signal to our limbs, to the different parts of our body, to perform some kind of action. For example, the person's eyes see an apple. That sends a message to the brain, an apple, I'm hungry. The brain says, okay, I'm now going to send a signal to the arm. The arm extends, it picks up the apple, and it brings it to the mouth to eat. That is a classic model of cognition where the brain is controlling everything. That's where the brain sends signals to your body to perform different tasks. Embodied cognition states the reverse. They say that the cognition is not only limited to the brain. In fact, our whole body, all the different parts of our body, have some part of the cognitive process. The cognition resides not only in the brain, but within the body parts themselves. And an example of this is from a study that they did in Cornell University. They did it in the robotics department. They built a robot, a walking robot, which consists of basically pipes, hinges, and weights. There's no electronic parts on this robot. It means this robot doesn't have a brain. But even though this robot has no brain, if you just give it a little bit of a push, and with the force of gravity, this robot walks even without a brain, which means that the cognitive ability of the robot does not come from the brain. It resides in the actual orientation of the parts. It's the weight of the hinges and the weights and the configuration. There's cognition in your limbs as well as your brain. And according to the theory of embedded cognition, by moving your body in different ways, you can stimulate the brain. Instead of the classic model of cognition where the brain stimulates the body, embodied cognition says that the body can also stimulate the brain in a reverse way. One classic study of this phenomenon was when they presented subjects with a TV screen with different images. The subjects had to stand in front of the TV screens with their hands down the sides of their bodies and watch the series of pictures being displayed on the TV screen. They then recorded the subject's response and their receptiveness to these images that they saw on the screen. They then took the same subjects, and instead of standing with their hands down their sides like this, they told them to stand with their palms stretched out in front of them like this. And then they presented these same subjects with the same images, the same series of images, and they recorded the response for a second time. And the results of this test showed that when the subject was standing with their palms out like this, their receptiveness to the images was much higher than when they were standing with their arms down like this. And the conclusion of the study is that the posture of holding your arms out in a supplication gesture like this triggers something in the brain, which was something primordial. It's called the pleasure response or the reward response, because somebody who puts out their hand is expecting to get something in their hand. It's a kind of a reward. You put out your hand, you get a reward. So actually by putting your hand out like that, you're stimulating the reward response in the brain, and you're increasing your receptiveness to everything that is around you. This has amazing implications for example, in our modern lives, even today, when you daven in shul. If you stand in shul and you daven with your hands at your sides like this, you have a certain level of kavanah. But if you take your hands and you put them out in front of you like this, and you daven with your hands in front of you like this, you're going to notice that your level of kavanah increases. You're going to have more receptiveness to what you're saying, and it's going to increase your receptiveness because of this embodied cognition response. Now, most people don't want to go to shul and stand around with their hands out like this in front of them. You can maybe try it at home when you're davening at home, but in shul, most people don't want to stand like this and look ridiculous. So you can still do this even in shul by simply taking a siddur and holding your hands in that outstretched formation, but by holding a siddur, it's not as noticeable. And you will see, especially the parts of the davening that you are expressing gratitude. For example, in the part of Shemona Esrei where you say Modim Anachnu Lach, when your hands are stretched out like this, or when you're listening to Birkat Kohanim, you will notice that your kavanah is increased quite exponentially, and it is an amazing thing to try out. Since I've discovered this, I've been davening like that all the time, holding my siddur with my hands outstretched. It actually works. You can try it yourselves. This is an example of the limbs stimulating the brain. So the question is, can we smile willingly with our mouths, and in that way evoke a happy feeling, a happy emotion? In other words, the hands stretched out were stimulating a feeling in the brain. By evoking the muscles, by stimulating the muscles of the smile, can we create the reverse? Can we evoke a happy emotion within us? And the answer is yes. But in order to explain to you how profound and how mind-blowing this is, instead of using my own words, I'm going to be borrowing a few words from someone who is a lot better than me. In fact, two people. According to the Mefarshim, the Mizmor that you see in front of you, Perek Tzadibet in Tehillim, was written by Adam Harishon, and it was probably embellished by David HaMelech. There's some references in here which are definitely David HaMelech style, and they express it 100 times better than I can. So I'm going to be using the Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat, the Mizmor Shel Yom on Yom HaShabbat, to explain to you how all this ties together, the smiling and the embodied cognition, etc., etc. The pasuk that I'm specifically interested in is pasuk Zayin. It says, Ish ba'ar lo yeda, uchsil lo yavin et zot. It's translated in English as a beastly man, ish ba'ar, somebody who is animalistic will not know. Uchsil, and a person who is a fool without any brains, lo yavin et zot. The question is, what is zot? I've always thought to myself when I say Mizmor Shel Yom Shabbat, what is the Zot that David HaMelech is talking about here? What will they not understand? What will the Ish Ba'ar and Achsil not understand? So in order to understand what Zot means, we need to go to Sifrei HaKabbalah, to the Sefer HaZohar. Sefer HaZohar on Parshat Truma. Rabbi Shimon says, he talks about a pasuk in Shir HaShirim of Shlomo HaMelech, Mi Zot HaNishkafa Kamo Shachar V'chule, and he says that the words mi and Zot are actually representative of two different worlds. The word mi is representative of an elevated spiritual world, a darga elyona lamala. This is referring to the level of spirituality, bashamayim, ba'olam haba. That is the world referred to by the word mi. On the other hand, the word zot is a darga tachtona. It is a lower level world. It's olam tachton. It is our world, our physical world, our natural world that we live in. So when David HaMelech is talking about Zot in the Mizmor, he's talking about our physical world. In other words, Ish Ba'ar Uchsil will not understand how our physical world works. And how does our physical world work? That is the question. How does it work? So we go back to a little bit of science here. Sorry to throw all the science and theory at you, but it will all tie together. There's a concept in science called entropy. Entropy is based on a law in physics called the second law of thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics says that energy, when it is very well ordered, it has the power to do work. Anything that is very well ordered has the power to do work. And as this order becomes more and more random and chaotic, it loses the power to do work. A classical example of this experiment is if they take two jugs of water. One has hot water in, the other one has cold water, and there is a pipe connecting the two. What will happen is that the hot water will flow in the direction of the cold water and not the reverse, because the hot water has ordered energy, it has a lot of potential energy, and the energy flow is from high order to low order. So the hot water will flow to the cold water side. In other words, the energy will naturally tend to become more and more chaotic. And once it's more chaotic, it has less ability to do work. That is the theory of entropy. The theory of entropy says that the entire universe is a closed system, and the universe tends towards more chaotic form of energy. It starts off very well ordered. The Big Bang theory was very well ordered. And as it goes on, the universe, it becomes more and more chaotic and more chaos. That is the way the natural world works. If things are left up to their own devices without an injection of energy from some outside source, the world becomes chaos and anarchy. And this is how David HaMelech describes it in the Tehillim. He says, "Bifroach reshaim kamo esev, vayatzitzu kol poalei ha'aven nishamdam ad ad." Has anybody got a garden? If you have a garden, you'll know that if you tend your garden and you mow the lawn and you look after it and you pull out the weeds every few weeks, your garden will remain. It's a lot of energy required to keep a nice, good-looking garden. But if you leave the garden untended for a long time, like a whole year, when you, for example, in Shemitah year in Eretz Yisrael, you're not allowed to tend your garden. After the year, your garden will be overrun by weeds. This is an example of entropy because the natural world tends towards chaos. Everything starts off being well ordered, but if it's left up to its own devices, the world tends towards chaos, which is another way of describing the survival of the fittest. Whoever is strong survives. That is chaos. That is not well ordered. To just punctuate this, we will look at another story from Sefer HaZohar, a story of Shlomo HaMelech. He was taught by a demon called Ashmedai about a certain lesson from his book of Chashafim, which was a book of his magic that Ashmedai taught HaMelech Shlomo. What is the lesson that he taught HaMelech Shlomo? He says, Ruach HaTum'ah mizdamenet tamid bechinam uverekanut v'nimkeret bli sachar. The Ruach of Tum'ah is easy. It doesn't require any effort. It's chinam, it's free, and it's empty, and you don't have to pay very much for it. It's very easy to acquire Tum'ah. On the other hand, Ruach HaKodesh אינה כך, אלא בשכר שלם ובהשתדלות רבה וגדולה. To acquire Ruach HaKodesh, on the other hand, is not the same as Ruach HaTumah. It is בשכר שלם. It requires a large payment in hishtadlut of injecting energy and effort to acquire Ruach HaKodesh. It's not something that comes easily on its own. To be a tzaddik, you have to inject a lot of effort and energy. And as David HaMelech describes it in the Mizmor, he says, tzaddik katamar yifrach ke'erez balvanon yiskeh. Tamar, a palm tree or a Lebanon cedar, is not something that is a low weed that just goes wild. It's something that elevates itself above the weeds. It's something that takes a long time and a lot of effort to get to that altitude. And that is what a tzaddik is. A tzaddik says, I'm not going to rely on my natural instincts and accept them for what they are and behave like the animal that I was created. I'm going to elevate myself up to a higher level. And I'm going to inject the energy and make the effort that is required to become a tzaddik and have Ruach HaKodesh, and not just live with the Ruach HaTumah and go with the flow and do what comes natural and be my natural animalistic self. And how does this relate to smiling? So smiling is a conscious action. The natural position of the muscles, as we can see when a person sleeps, is not a smile. When a person sleeps, the natural facial expression is not a smile because the muscles are relaxed, and that does not put the expression of a smile on a person's face. And for a person to smile, you have to invest energy and effort. To make a smile, you have to activate your zygomaticus muscles. That requires effort and energy. In other words, smiling is not something that comes naturally. It's something that you have to work on and invest energy in doing. Otherwise, you're not going to smile. If you don't smile by injecting energy and effort, you are probably not going to smile very much at all. So the question is, can we smile and cause ourselves to feel happy inside? In fact, it's not optional for us to smile. We think maybe sometimes we smile, sometimes we don't smile. Most of the time, if we're not happy, we're not going to smile. But in fact, HaKadosh Baruch Hu requires from us that we have to smile. We have to smile. And when do we have to smile? Maybe only in the morning, or maybe once a week on Wednesday afternoons. No, it says, Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha tamid. You have to always have simcha, always, not only sometimes, but tamid. You have to work on yourself that you have a feeling of simcha tamid. It says in the klala in Parshat Ki Tavo, why do we get all these klalot? Tachat asher lo avarata et Hashem elokecha b'simcha uvetuv levav merov kol. Because we did not worship Hashem b'simcha, because we went about our lives not b'simcha, with appreciation for what we had. It says merov kol. What is merov kol? What is the difference between rov and kol? So we learn this from the meeting of Yaakov and Esav. When Yaakov came back from Haran and he established his connection with Esav, they met each other. Yaakov sent forward a lot of gifts to Esav, a lot of sheep and a lot of other gifts. And Esav refused to accept the gifts. He says, Yesh li rav, I have a lot. Esav is a rasha. When a person is a rasha, he says, I have a lot. What is a lot? A lot is not everything. A lot is, I have a lot, but I still want more. That is the embodiment of a rasha, when somebody is not satisfied with what they have. They always want more than they have. On the other hand, in this encounter, Yaakov, when he speaks to Esav, he says, Yesh li kol, I have everything. I don't need anything else. Whatever I have, that's what I need. That's everything to me, even though it may not be everything, but to me it is everything. It's kol. That is the symbol of a tzaddik, somebody who is shalem with what they have and they're samech bechelkam. In fact, in Yahadut, there are two types of simcha. First of all, we have the simcha that we experience around the time of Sukkot and Simchat Torah and Shmini Atzeret. If you look in the Machzor on the Tefillot of the Chag, it says, Chag HaSukkot Zman Simchatenu. What kind of simcha do we experience around Sukkot? The simcha that we experience is a simcha of prosperity. We have just finished a cycle of agriculture. We've collected all the grains from the field, from all the harvest, from the barley and the wheat. We've collected all the fruit from the trees. Our storerooms are jam-packed with food. We have a feeling of prosperity. It's a feeling of simcha that comes from within. It's a simcha that emanates from inside, and it's projected outside by our facial expression of simcha, of smiling. There is a second kind of simcha in Yahadut, which we experience around Purim time. Around Purim time, we have all kinds of minhagim that we have to do around Purim time. For example, we have to drink wine. It's a mitzvah to drink wine. Ad delo yada ben Arur Mordechai Baruch Haman. We have to drink to make ourselves happy. The kids dress up in costumes. We do all kinds of things to artificially make ourselves happy. It's not a feeling of inner happiness that emanates outwards. It's all kinds of artificial things from the outside trying to cause us to be happy by force of will. This is a kind of happiness that we experience on Sukkot time. In fact, these two types of happiness, the inner happiness that radiates outwards and the happiness that we force ourselves to feel inside by making a conscious effort, these reflect real life. Because life is not always a bed of roses. Sometimes you are happy from inside, and sometimes you are happy only because you make yourself happy. Before we get into that subject a little bit more, I just want to tie up the connection between smiling and the Lechem Hapanim. So let's get back to the mechanics of smiling. We said that the components of the smile are the eyes, the mouth, and the zygomatic muscle and the bone, which is connected to the cheekbone, connecting the two. I would like to propose that the eyes are symbolic of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the mouth is symbolic of Am Yisrael, and the thing that connects the eyes and the mouth is symbolic of Eretz Yisrael. And why do I have this theory? Because there are a lot of psukim in the Tanakh which refer to Am Yisrael in the form of a mouth. They say, for example, in Parshat Balak, we read it a few weeks ago, Ein kocho ela befiv, of the Medrash Tanchuma, that the power of Am Yisrael is in their mouth. Another one is Hakol Kol Yaakov. Yaakov's power is in his mouth, in his voice. On the other hand, Hashem is often referred in the connotation of eyes. Obviously, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have physical form. It's just something symbolic. It says, Enei Hashem el tzadikim, eretz asher tamid enei Hashem elokecha ba. So we often refer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the context of the eyes. The thing that connects Am Yisrael, the mouth and the eyes, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the cheekbone, the zygomatic bone. If you have a look at the shape of the cheekbone, look at it very carefully. And now I'm going to show you something else which has a very similar shape. This is a map of the Mamlechet David, a Melech in the time of Melech Shaul and Melech David, of Mamlechet Israel, the Chalukah of the Shvatim, and the shape of the map of Eretz Israel and the shape of the cheekbone are almost identical. In other words, the connection between the eyes and the mouth is Eretz Israel. Shtulim bevet Hashem b'chatzrot Elokeinu yafrichu. If you take Am Yisrael and you plant them in the right soil, in the right ground, they will grow yafrichu, they will grow the correct way. What is the right soil, the right ground for Am Yisrael, so they can really reach HaKadosh Baruch Hu the right way? The right ground is obviously Eretz Yisrael. So this is the three components of the smile: the eyes, the mouth, and the cheekbone, representing Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's look now at the Lechem Hapanim. The Lechem Hapanim also has three components. The first component is the levona. The levona was two bowls of incense, of spice, that were brought on the Mizbeach. They were burnt on the Mizbeach. They were the part of the Korban Lechem Hapanim for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the component of the Korban that belonged to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was not eaten by the Kohanim, it was burnt on the Mizbeach. This is the part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the eyes, or the Bazichei Levona. The bread, or the smile, the smiling mouth, is the bread that was eaten by the Kohanim. The Kohanim ate all 12 breads, split between the two shifts of Kohanim and the Kohen Gadol. But that was a part of the Korban that was eaten by Am Yisrael, the Kohanim. The third component is the Shulchan. The Shulchan is a symbol of Malchut. Malchut is a symbol of Eretz Yisrael. Malchut Beit David, that is the symbol of Eretz Israel. So you can see that the components of a smile, of the anatomy of a smile, are closely linked to the concept of the Shulchan and the Lechem Hapanim and the Levona. Now, the Lechem Hapanim was a symbol of wealth. It was a symbol of Osher and Shefa, material wealth. The question is, what is wealth? What is wealth? How do we define wealth? So there's a very famous Mishnah in Masechet Menachot, why we call the Lechem Hapanim. It says, Ben Zoma Omer, V'natata ala shulchan, Lechem Panim lefanai tamid. Why is it called Lechem Hapanim? Sheyehe lo panim, that it should have panim. Most of the Mefarshim translate this as that it has many sides to it, or it has faces facing the front of the Echal, the back of the Echal, the entrance, etc. But I would like to propose another explanation that Ben Zoma is talking about, that it actually means sheyeh lo panim, that it looks like a face, like a panim. And if we want to find out what kind of panim Ben Zoma was talking about, what he intended with when he was talking about panim, we look at another Mishnah of Ben Zoma from Masechet Avot, Pirkei Avot. Ben Zoma Omer, Ezehu Ashir Hasameach Bechelko. Someone who is rich is someone who is sameach, is happy, smiling. Bechelko, he's happy with what he has. He's like Yaakov. He says, Yesh li kol, I have everything. Whatever I need, that is enough for me. Whatever I have, that is enough for me. This is the true definition of Ashir. Does money create wealth? Is money equivalent to wealth? That is the question. And scientists, psychologists, and social scientists have actually studied this question. And the way they did this is by examining two populations. First of all, they examined a population of people who had just won the lottery. These guys have just had a landslide, a windfall. They just become millions and millions of dollars richer. The second population that they examined was accident victims who had just lost the use of their lower limbs. They became paraplegics. And they asked these two populations immediately after they just either won the lottery or after they'd become paralyzed. They asked them what their sense of wealth and happiness was. And they plotted it on a graph. And obviously the guys who just won the lottery, they were elated. They felt very wealthy. They had a great sense of wealth. The people who just became paralyzed obviously had a very low sense of wealth. That is obvious. Nobody needs to be a rocket scientist to tell you that. But the question is, what happens down the road? They then went back a year later. These same scientists went back to these same people a year later, and they said, okay, what is your sense of wealth a year later? And look at what they found. A year later down the road, the lottery winners and the paraplegics had almost an equal sense of wealth. In fact, the paraplegics had a fractional sense of wealth which was higher than the lottery winners. And the conclusion drawn by the scientists and the researchers is that money is not a dictator of wealth. In other words, having a lot of money does not necessarily make you wealthy. You can feel a sense of happiness and wealth without having a lot of money. Even if you've just gone through a catastrophe or a disaster in your life, you can have a sense of wealth and feel happy. Life actually is not a bed of roses. We go through all different periods of our lives. Some are up, some are down. Sometimes we have medical problems when it aches over here and it aches over here. We have financial problems. We have stress at work. We have problems in our relationships. Life is not always plain sailing. You can't expect people to have a level of sense of wealth constantly throughout their lives. But when you're going through a period of a down period, it says, you have to try at least to be sameach tamid, and you have to try elevate yourself with a lot of effort to having a sense of simcha. And you have to do this by conscious effort, and there's ways to do it. And the ways to do it is listed in the Mizmor of Mizmor Shel Yom HaShabbat. And the first one is gratitude. If you have a sense of constant gratitude for what you have, you will create inside yourself a feeling of simcha. For example, the way I tell people to create a sense of gratitude in themselves is when they wake up in the morning and they have a pain in their back and they have a headache and they didn't sleep very well during the night. The best thing for them to do is to do a pre-flight checklist, like a pilot before they take off on a plane. Unfortunately, now with the corona, there's no flights. But when there were flights, before the pilots took off, they checked their flaps, they checked their left engine, the right engine, the ailerons, the fuel gauges, all the things were working fine. If you wake up in the morning and you do a checklist, not the negative checklist, oh, this hurts and that hurts. If you do a positive checklist, look at all the things that are working just fine. Your eyes, try blink your eyes. The eyes are doing just great. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch Hashem, my eyes are working just great. My teeth working just fine. Hopefully everybody has the teeth. The hands, how the hands are functioning, yeah. The feet are, Baruch Hashem, I have my feet. In fact, if you look at the Rashi Tevot of Enayim, Shinayim, Yadayim, Beraglayim, it makes up the word Ashir. Who is an Ashir? Ashir is a person who has their health, who actually, the entire system is actually working pretty good. You have an ache there, you have a pain there, but most of the system is working pretty good. You do a checklist like this and you put things into perspective, you get a different perspective on life, and you concentrate on the positive things that are actually working, and you get a sense of gratitude. That is one method. The next method is to just take a step outside your door. Everyone now with the corona, we're confined to our houses and we don't get out very much these days because we're worried about getting sick. But if you just take a step out into your own garden, if you have a garden, or even just walk out on your veranda, on your balcony, and look around you. If you look at the world around you, there is amazing beauty in the world that we see. Even the simple things that we see in front of us. Just look up and look at the blue sky. Look down and see the beauty of the world that surrounds us. There is incredible beauty in the Bria of Hashem's creation. And just exposing ourselves to this beauty creates a sense of happiness inside ourselves. And it says that very succinctly in the Mizmor. It says, Ki simachtani Hashem b'fa'olecha b'ma'aseh yadecha aranen. By looking at Hashem's creation and looking at the amazement of the creation, it increases a sense of happiness within us. It is so well designed, it creates a feeling of amazement within us. That is a second method for making ourselves feeling a little bit more elated and happy when we're feeling down, is to go outside and look up, look around, take a deep breath and put things into perspective. Now, smiling is an amazing tool. The reason it is such an amazing tool is because when we smile, we radiate something to the outside world, and in most cases, it is reflected back to us. What we radiate outwards is usually reflected back to us. If we all the time go around with a very a big frown and an unsmiling face, most people who see you will radiate that back to us. If you want to try this, go and walk past someone in the street who you don't even know and just smile at them, a nice smile. And in 90% of the cases, they will smile back at you, even somebody you've never met before in your life. This is because we radiate something outwards, we get it back from the world that we radiate out to. So this is very important in what we do in our daily lives. In our work, if you smile during your work hours and you radiate positivity out to the people you're working with, they're going to reflect back to you smiling and positivity in return. This is an essential tool for anybody who wants to be successful in their career, in what their profession is. If you're a caregiver, it's essential. If you're a shopkeeper, they say, if you don't smile, don't open up a store, because if you're not going to smile, you're not going to sell anything. What you radiate outwards is reflected back to you. People who are going to find a job, if they're out of work and they're going for a job, and they don't radiate positivity and smiling, that is one of the most occurrences, of the main reasons that they fail in their job interview. 38% of people fail in their job interview because they don't smile. 67% of the people fail because they don't make eye contact. The two components of a smile, the mouth and the eyes, these are the reason when people do not use them correctly, that they don't land a good job. They fail in their job interview and they have to settle for something which is second best because they don't radiate positivity and smiling outwards to the world. People who did land a good job, if they are positive and they radiate simcha outwards while they are working in their profession or in their occupation, that the researchers have found that they succeed more than people who are unhappy with what they do. If somebody's happy with the work that they're doing, they will be more successful and they will be making more money. So smiling is not just a simple emotional thing. It has repercussions in terms of economics and finance. If you smile more and you feel more positive, you'll be making more money, which is also an indication of wealth. It's part of the indication, it's not the full picture, but by smiling and being more positive, you will be more successful and land a better chance to make money as well. In addition to making money by smiling, there's a lot of side benefits as well. It's not just saving schemes of side benefits and all kinds of pension plans. By smiling, you boost your immune system, you reduce stress, and that is good for boosting your immune system. It is good for creating a healthy heart because you have less stress. This is all done by smiling more and being more positive and creating positive emotions within ourselves. The question is, do we have to walk around every day, all day, smiling non-stop? Like the Joker in the Batman movie where he's got the smile plaster on his face? And the answer is no, because somebody who smiles 24/7 like Jack Nicholson in the Batman movie, it's not a positive smile, it's a scary smile. Someone who doesn't stop smiling and is constantly plastered with a smile on his face is someone who's a little bit scary. In fact, when Duchenne studied the science of smiling, he found that in a sincere smile, he studied other components of the smile called duration, intensity, and frequency. How often people smile, how long each smile lasts, and how intense they are. And he found that a Duchenne smile, a sincere smile, which is a reflection of the sweet emotions of the soul, they are brief. They're not long in duration. They're short, but they are more intense and they occur more often. They're not plastered on your face 24/7. That is a scary kind of smile and it's not natural. A natural kind of smile is something which is short-lived, it is more intense, and it occurs frequently. We have to try smile like kids smile. We have to try smile around 300 times a day. Adults on average smile between maybe 2 to 5 times a day. Check it yourself. Be conscious of how many times you actually smile during the day, and you'll see it's a very small amount of times you smile. People smile when they're adults, they smile very little. The aim of the game is to try and become kids again, at least at heart, and try up the number of smiles that we smile during the day. Maybe not to 200 or 300, but at least to get it much higher than we have it right now. When I discovered this whole concept of smiling and the link with the Lechem Hapanim and how it is all linked to prosperity and wealth, I try to use myself as a guinea pig and experiment on myself. And I try to smile more in the context of my family environment, with the people around me in shul, in my neighborhood. And when I was specifically feeling down, I try to make a forced effort to uplift myself by smiling and trying to make myself feel a little bit more upbeat. And after about 2 months of this experiment, I went to my wife and I said to her, dear, have you noticed anything different about me in the last 2 months? And she said, yeah, what is wrong with you? The smiling had a profound effect on my family. They found that I was more relaxed, less stressful, less prone to outbursts, more accepting and more forgiving. And it creates a much happier environment in the home. And you can try it yourselves. It is one of the best tools to improving your relationship with your family and with your spouse, is by being more upbeat and smiling more. Smiling has a wonderful strength for strengthening relationships between people. The whole concept of the Lechem Hapanim and smiling is just a reflection of this pasuk. It says in Parshat Truma, the Beit HaMikdash, the whole concept of talking about Lechem Hapanim and smiling during the 3 weeks, it's because it's part of the Beit HaMikdash. But the real Beit HaMikdash is not the building. It's not the architectural structure of the Hechal and the Kodesh and the Kodesh HaKodashim and the Menorah. The real Mikdash that Hashem intended for was the Mikdash Shebetocham, the Mikdash that is within us, the Mikdash that we have within ourselves. And if you apply the principles that we learn from the actual physical structure of the Beit HaMikdash, we can apply them within ourselves. That is where the true Mikdash is. And that is what the purpose essentially of the Beit HaMikdash is. When the Oleh HaRegel went up to Yerushalayim on the Shloshet HaRegalim, and they brought out the Kelim, they brought out the Menorah, and they brought out the Lechem Hapanim to show Am Yisrael, and they saw the Lechem Hapanim on the Shulchan, which looked like a smiley face. The Lechem Hapanim was warm. They could still see the steam rising off the Lechem Hapanim, which was a symbol of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's affection for Am Yisrael. And this evoked a message that, what is the message of the Lechem Hapanim? That the message of the Lechem Hapanim is that we should be like smiling like the shape of the Lechem Hapanim. We should make ourselves smile inside, and in that way we will increase our sense of wealth and our sense of prosperity. Ezehu ashir hasamech bechelko. Someone who is samech and smiling is an ashir. That is the lesson of the Lechem Hapanim. Ezehu ashir hasamech bechelko. In our institute, Machon Lechem Hapanim, we don't only do the research, we try to apply the research as well. So once we learned this phenomenal, mind-blowing lesson of smiling, increasing a sense of wealth and happiness, we're trying now to apply it on a practical level. So we've opened up a branch of our organization called Smile for Life, Chiyuch L'Chaim, which is actually a charitable organization. And the purpose of the organization is to apply this lesson of the Lechem Hapanim and the power of a smile, and to help people who have lost the ability to smile, to help them smile again. We help young adults and kids who have lost the front teeth, the permanent teeth that will not grow back again, and they are afraid to smile for fear that people will make fun of them. So we help them by funding dental implants. We fully subsidize, we fully fund the treatment and allow these kids to be able to smile again, these young adults at the most critical point in their lives where they are becoming adults and they're creating relationships with people and looking for a spouse. This is a critical time for them in their lives, and we help fund the dental implants to help them to smile. We also help families or individuals who are having problems making a parnasa. Right now, we have the corona, everybody's struggling now making a parnasa, so there's a lot more people in this situation. And we have a whole multidisciplinary team of people to help people who are having problems making parnasa and they're having a hard time actually smiling because of the difficult financial situation. So we have accountants, financial advisors, counselors, psychologists, legal advisors, all helping these people to get their lives back on track and to start smiling again. And this is the second field of operations that we deal with in Smile for Life, in Chiyuch L'Chaim. Our organization, Machon Lechem Hapanim, is involved in researching the Lechem Hapanim. It is involved in chesed, in practically applying the things that we learn from our research. We also are involved in education. We go around yeshivot and ulpanot and seminars and schools and batei knesset and shiurim, and we teach what we've learned about the Lechem Hapanim, and we do it in a b'dalchei shalom, and in this way we mekarev Am Yisrael back to the original arachim of Yahadut and the Beit HaMikdash, and we do a lot of keruv work. And obviously the final area that we work in is trying to experiment and trying to prepare the Lechem Hapanim and trying to get it ready that we know how to do it, that if Mashiach, Bezrat Hashem, will come before Tisha B'Av, maybe tomorrow, hopefully even today, that we will have the Lechem Hapanim down pat. We'll know exactly how to do it, and we will be able to get straight away baking. And this is the three things that we do in our Showbread Institute. We operate on public funding. We work off donations. All our operations are funded by people donating money. And if you go to our website, which is www.showbreadinstitute.org, and you click on the link which says donations, if you could please help donate whatever amount you can donate, even if it's a very small amount, it will help us continue doing this Avodat Kodesh and mekareving Am Yisrael to Avodat HaKodesh and helping Am Yisrael with the chesed and learning about the Beit HaMikdash and trying to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash b'mehera b'yameinu amen. I want to thank you all for joining in our shiur today, and I would like to welcome you to come for next week's shiur at the same time. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the Mikdash, Asher B'tochenu, the Mikdash within ourselves. There are reflections of the architectural structures. We saw it with the Lechem Hapanim. It is much more broad than just simply the Lechem Hapanim. There are a lot more examples of this, and this is going to be explored next week in our shiur called the Mikdash within us. I welcome you to come join us next week. Have a Shavua Tov, the Kol Tov.